First up, Mad Max, a game that dropped in 2015 and somehow flew under the radar despite being a chaotic, post-apocalyptic masterpiece. Critics slammed it for being repetitive and derivative, but let's be real, they missed the point. This game nails the vibe of the Mad Max films, throwing you into a gorgeous, desolate wasteland where every inch screams danger. The vehicular combat? Insane. You're upgrading your magnum opus, smashing through enemy convoys, and dodging sandstorms that feel straight out of Fury Road. Sure, the melee combat borrows from the Arkham-style formula, but it's fast-paced and brutal, perfect for Max's no-nonsense attitude. What critics didn't get is that Mad Max isn't about reinventing the wheel, it's about immersion. The world is alive with details, from underground churches to abandoned airports, and the story, while simple, hits hard with themes of loss and survival. Yeah, it launched the same day as Metal Gear Solid 5, which didn't help, but that's no excuse to sleep on it. Fans of the films and open-world games owe it to themselves to give this one a shot. It's not perfect, but it's a blast, and it's criminal that it's not talked about more. The establishment narrative wrote it off as just another open-world game, but we're here to say, don't believe the hype. Mad Max deserves better. Next up, Ryse, Son of Rome, a 2013 Xbox One launch title that got absolutely trashed by critics. They called it repetitive, shallow, and style over substance. But let's unpack that. Ryse is a visual stunner, even today, with graphics that hold up like it launched last week. You play as Marius Titus, a Roman soldier on a revenge-fueled rampage. And yeah, the story's not groundbreaking, but it's cinematic as hell. The cutscenes feel like Gladiator meets 300, and the atmosphere? Pure Roman epicness. The combat gets flack for being simple, but that's where critics miss the mark. It's tight, visceral, and satisfying. Hack, slash, and execute your way through hordes of barbarians. Sure, it's linear, but that's not a flaw. It's a focused experience. The formation battles and Colosseum sequences are pure adrenaline, and commanding troops feels like you're leading an army straight out of history. Critics hated on it for not being deep enough, but not every game needs to be. Sometimes, you just want to feel like a badass Roman general, and Ryse delivers that in spades. The establishment narrative trashed it because it dared to be a launch title for the Xbox One, which was already under fire. But strip away the bias, and you've got a game that's fun, gorgeous, and criminally underrated. Alright, let's talk Days Gone, the 2019 open-world zombie game that critics absolutely roasted. They called it generic, buggy, and uninspired, but here's the thing, they were wrong. Days Gone is a slow-burn masterpiece that takes time to shine, and if you stick with it, it's unforgettable. You play as Deacon St. John, a gruff biker navigating a post-apocalyptic Oregon. And yeah, the story starts slow, but it builds into something deeply personal. The facial animations are top-notch, and Deacon's journey with his wife, Sarah, hits hard. The gameplay? It's survival at its best. You're scavenging, crafting, and riding your motorcycle through a world that's alive with danger. The day-night cycle is genius. Freakers are slow during the day, but terrifying at night. And those hordes? Facing hundreds of zombies at once is pure chaos, and taking them down creatively is a rush. Sure, it had bugs at launch, but most were patched, and the core experience is rock solid. Critics compared it to Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, which was unfair. It's its own thing. What bugs me is how the establishment narrative dismissed it as just another zombie game. But Days Gone has heart, atmosphere, and gameplay that keeps you hooked. Fans have been begging for a sequel, and honestly, it deserves one. If you slept on this because of the reviews, do yourself a favor and give it a chance. Let's jump into game number 8. The Callisto Protocol, a 2022 horror game that critics absolutely shredded. They called it clunky, repetitive, and a poor man's Dead Space. But here's the thing, they missed the mark. From the team behind Dead Space, this game is a brutal, atmospheric nightmare that deserves way more credit. You play as Jacob Lee, trapped on a prison moon overrun by grotesque biophages, and the tension is palpable. The visuals? Stunning. The gore? Next level. Every hit feels heavy, and the sound design, those squelching monsters and echoing corridors, makes your skin crawl. Critics trashed the melee combat for being awkward, but that's the point. It's supposed to feel desperate. You're not a superhero. You're a guy fighting for survival. Dodging, blocking, and combo-ing feels rewarding once you get the rhythm, and mixing in guns and telekinesis keeps it fresh. Sure, the story's a bit predictable, but it's the atmosphere that shines. The prison feels alive with dread, and the DLC only adds to the experience. The establishment narrative slammed it for not living up to Dead Space, but that's unfair. It's its own beast. Yeah, it had some performance issues at launch, but those were patched, and the core game is solid. If you love sci-fi horror, this one's a must-play. Next up, game number 7. The Evil Within, a 2014 survival horror classic that critics trash for being messy and confusing. Directed by Shinji Mikami, the mastermind behind Resident Evil, this game is a wild ride that didn't get the love it deserved. You play as Sebastian Castellanos, a detective thrown into a twisted, nightmarish world. And yeah, the story's bonkers, but that's what makes it great. It's a blend of psychological horror and old-school survival, with limited ammo, creepy enemies, and environments that shift like a bad dream. Critics hated on the pacing and controls, but let's be real. It's survival horror, not an action shooter. You're supposed to feel vulnerable, and the clunky controls add to that tension. The level design is genius, from blood-soaked hospitals to foggy villages, and the bosses, like the chainsaw-wielding Keeper, are straight out of your nightmares. Sure, the plot's a bit convoluted, but it's packed with memorable moments, and the sequel only proves how strong the foundation is. The establishment narrative dismissed it as a failed Resident Evil clone, but that's nonsense. The Evil Within is its own thing, blending classic horror with modern twists. Game number 6. Vampyr, a 2018 action RPG that critics absolutely roasted. They called it janky, unpolished, and ambitious but flawed. But here's the thing. Those flaws are part of its charm. You play as Jonathan Reed, a doctor-turned-vampire in 1918 London, and the moral choices are the heart of this game. Do you feed on citizens to gain power, or spare them and struggle through combat? Every choice matters, and the branching storylines are genuinely compelling. The atmosphere is incredible. Foggy streets, plague-ravaged districts, and haunting music make London feel alive. Critics trash the combat for being clunky, but it's not that bad. Mixing melee, guns, and vampire powers is fun, and the leveling system tied to feeding is genius. Sure, it's not as polished as The Witcher 3, but it's not trying to be. Vampyr is a smaller, more personal experience, and it nails the gothic horror vibe. What bugs me is how the establishment narrative dismissed it as mediocre. But fans of narrative-driven games and vampire lore will find a lot to love here. The citizens you meet have backstories, and deciding who lives or dies is tough. It's not perfect, the animations can be stiff, and the load times are rough, but the story and choices make up for it. Let's kick off game number 5. Far Cry Primal, a 2016 spin-off that critics absolutely trashed. They called it repetitive, shallow, and a step back for the series. But let's unpack that. This game is a bold, unique entry that deserves way more love. Set in 10,000 BC, you play as Tacker, a hunter trying to unite his tribe in a prehistoric world full of danger. No guns, no vehicles, just spears, bows, and taming wild animals. And that's where it shines. The world of Oris is gorgeous, from snowy mountains to lush valleys, and it's packed with life. Taming a saber-toothed tiger or riding a mammoth in a battle. Pure adrenaline. Critics hated on the lack of innovation, but that's nonsense. It's a fresh take on the Far Cry formula. The survival mechanics are tight, and the crafting system feels rewarding. Sure, the story's simple, but it's not trying to be Shakespeare. It's about raw, primal survival. The establishment narrative dismissed it as just another Far Cry, but that's unfair. It's a love letter to prehistoric settings, and the language, spoken entirely in a fictional Proto-Indo-European dialect, is immersive as hell. Yeah, it reuses the map from Far Cry 4, but it's so transformed you'd barely notice. If you slept on this because of the reviews, give it a shot. Next up, game number 4, Biomutant, a 2021 open-world RPG that critics absolutely shredded. They called it messy, overambitious, and a jack of all trades, master of none. But here's the thing, they missed the charm. You play as a customizable mutant in a post-apocalyptic world. And yeah, it's quirky, but that's what makes it special. The world is vibrant, with lush forests, toxic wastelands, and ancient ruins, and exploring it feels like a fever dream, in a good way. The combat is a blast, mixing melee, guns, and mutant powers like telekinesis. Critics trashed it for being shallow, but it's not. It's just different. The crafting system is deep, letting you build weapons and gear from scrap, and the karma system tied to your choices is genuinely cool. Sure, the narrator can be divisive, but it adds personality, and you can tone it down in the settings. The story's a bit all over the place, but it's packed with heart, and the moral choices, like saving or dooming the world tree, hit hard. The establishment narrative slammed it for not being polished enough, but that's unfair. Biomutant is a small team's passion project, and it shows. It's not AAA, and it doesn't need to be. If you love weird, experimental games, this one's for you. Don't let the critics scare you off. It's a hidden gem that deserves more love. Alright, game number 3. Remember Me, a 2013 action-adventure game that critics trash for being forgettable and clunky. But let's be real, they missed the point. Set in a cyberpunk Neo-Paris, you play as Neeline, a memory hunter who can remix people's memories, and that concept alone is genius. The story dives into themes of surveillance, identity, and corporate control, and it's way ahead of its time. The visuals? Stunning. The city feels alive, with neon-lit slums and holographic ads, and the soundtrack is pure cyberpunk gold. Critics hated on the combat for being repetitive, but that's unfair. It's a combo-based system where you build your own moves, and once you get the rhythm, it's satisfying. The memory remixing sequences, where you alter someone's past, are mind-bending, and there's still some of the most unique mechanics in gaming. Sure, it's linear, but that's not a flaw. It's a focused experience. The platforming is tight, and the boss fights, like the one against Madam, are intense. The establishment narrative dismissed it as style over substance, but that's nonsense. Remember Me is ambitious, and yeah, it has flaws. The pacing can drag, and the camera can be wonky, but it's a gem that got buried under bigger releases. If you love cyberpunk stories and innovative gameplay, this one's a must-play. Don't let the critics fool you. It's worth revisiting. Let's dive into game number 2. Watch Dogs, the 2014 open-world hacker game that critics absolutely trashed. They called it disappointing, clunky, and a downgrade from the E3 trailers. But here's the thing, they missed the point. You play as Aiden Pierce, a vigilante hacker in a hyper-connected Chicago. And yeah, the hype was insane, but that doesn't mean the game isn't great. The hacking mechanics are revolutionary. You're hacking traffic lights, cameras, and even ATMs, and it feels like you're in control of the city. Critics slammed the story for being generic, but it's not. It's personal. Aiden's quest for revenge after his niece's death hits hard, and the side characters, like Claire and T-Bone, are memorable. The driving gets flack for being floaty, but it's not that bad, and the gunplay is solid. The real star is the world. Chicago is alive, with bustling streets and hidden secrets, and the digital trips, like the Spider Tank mode, are pure fun. Sure, the graphics didn't match the E3 trailer, but they're still gorgeous, especially the rain effects. The establishment narrative dismissed it as a GTA clone, but that's unfair. Watch Dogs is its own thing, blending hacking with open-world chaos, and it laid the groundwork for the sequels. If you slept on this because of the reviews, give it a shot. It's a gem that got buried under the hype. Let us know in the comments. Did you love hacking Chicago, or do you think the critics were right? And now, game number 1. Mafia 3, a 2016 open-world crime game that critics absolutely shredded. They called it repetitive, buggy, and a missed opportunity. But let's unpack that. This game is a masterpiece that deserves way more love. You play as Lincoln Clay, a Vietnam vet seeking revenge in 1968 New Bordeaux. And the story? It's incredible. The themes of racism, betrayal, and redemption are handled with care, and the cutscenes, framed like a documentary, are cinematic as hell. Critics trash the gameplay for being repetitive, but that's unfair. Taking down rackets and districts feels methodical, and the gunplay is brutal. Headshots and takedowns are satisfying. The driving is top-notch, with muscle cars roaring through the bayou, and the soundtrack, from Hendrix to Credence, is pure gold. Sure, it had bugs at launch, but most were patched, and the core experience is rock solid. The world of New Bordeaux is alive, from the French War to the swamps, and the atmosphere nails the 60s vibe. The establishment narrative dismissed it as just another open-world game, but that's nonsense. Mafia 3 is a bold, narrative-driven experience with heart, and Lincoln Clay is one of the best protagonists in gaming. If you skip this because of the reviews, do yourself a favor and give it a chance. It's not perfect, but it's way better than the critics let on. And that's a wrap, gamers. We've just gone through 11 insanely underrated games that critics trashed, but deserve way more love. From the hacking chaos of Watch Dogs to the primal survival of Cry Primal, these titles prove that the establishment narrative doesn't always get it right. They were misunderstood, overshadowed, or just plain dismissed, but we're here to set the record straight. Hopefully, this list inspires you to give these gems a second chance, or maybe even a first one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on more content like this. Let us know in the comments, which game from the list surprised you the most, and what other underrated titles should we cover next. Thanks for watching, keep questioning the narrative, and we'll see you in the next video. And remember, we are GamesPedia EX, your AI favorite video game source. I'll be back.